actually wanted to start with kind of a more general question. And that is about whether we let our whether and how to let our kids fail if we need to. So someone wrote in to say, my child needs help working on their executive function. Is this my job or is it the kid's job? She has a specialist available to her, but whether it's due to stigma or another challenge, she's really refusing any help. So they asked, how can I motivate her and help her see that she needs to master this for her future, for college and beyond? Do I just let her fail to help that message get through?
No, we don't want to let kids fail because it doesn't ultimately benefit them. Often when we say, what often happens is as parents, we provide a lot of scaffolding and we don't want our kids to fall apart and to fail and to experience a lot of difficulty. And so we help them get their homework done. If they forget a project at home, we drive to school and drop it off for them. But often when we've had enough and we feel like we've supported them and now we just say, I'm backing away totally. What happens is that they don't just pick themselves up and learn from their mistakes and say, you know what, you're right. I really should work harder on this. I haven't found that to be true. What I would do in this case is because she does have somebody she can work with, I wouldn't give her the option. I wouldn't say, well, you don't have to go to her. What I would say is, you're going to go with her. You can pick the day, give choice. You can pick the day, you can pick the time, whatever choice you can offer, but you need to go for at least 3 sessions or whatever you decide on. Often kids don't see the value in working with somebody else because they haven't experienced it yet. And I bet she gets a quick win. I bet she works with this person, sees that it's helpful, and she's much more willing to go back. So I wouldn't leave it to her to decide whether she works with this person or not, but maybe the other things and just get her there. And that may help her on that path of quick wins.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you. And our number one challenge today, as I said, was procrastination. And you had suggested that, please correct me if I'm wrong, that those big rocks are often the source of procrastination, and that part of the battle is breaking them up. A lot of our kids don't want us to help them break them up. And if you don't have a coach to work with, and you know that your kid is going to resist your help specifically, can you offer some ideas, alternative ideas of how we can how we can get our kids to begin breaking up their own rocks?
All right. So the homework power-ups that I mentioned, I'd print that out and talk to your child about it and say, hey, I got this from a webinar. I don't know if it's helpful to you. It might be, or it might not be. What do you think? Because if you just say you need to do this, it's not going to go over well. But by saying this could work, maybe not. Usually the student's like, oh, well, what is it? But we teach kids, and you can say to your child, the brain is so funny. It doesn't like to do hard things. Have you ever noticed that? I found when I trick my brain and I make my brain think that the task isn't that hard after all, my brain is willing to do it. So you're not saying you should do it. You're just kind of giving information on what has worked for you. And you're talking about your brain as a person. I know this sounds weird, but kids are much more open to experience shares. And so when we work with kids, we say your brain can be tricked 2 ways, by time or by task. Get a timer. Could be, you can have one on your phone, but I'd rather have a physical timer. And you set it for a very short period of time, 10 minutes. And you say, I'm going to X out of all my open screens, all my distractions. All I'm going to do is work for 10 minutes. There's also something you can look up called the Pomodoro technique, which is my favorite, especially for older kids. It's how to use a timer for 25 minutes, which is the sweet spot for motivation. Set it for 25 minutes. So that's time, but task might be, this is a rock. I don't want to write this essay. all I'm going to do is write the thesis statement and then I'm going to take a break. Your brain needs work and a reward, work and a reward. And, interspersing rewards like that, and the reward can be, I'm going to check my text messages or I'm going to get a snack. That can make a difference for kids.
Okay, excellent. And then, of course, those are the big rocks. The medium-sized rocks. Well, let's just call them like our daily homework, and that next challenge, which is time management. So many challenges here. Whether it's estimating realistically how long things will take, to resisting the temptation to just check, Snapchat for 5 minutes. Um, do you have suggestions for how to motivate your child, to stay on task and according to their plan, if you can get them to put one in place without nagging and hovering?
If you can make the environment right for motivation or really encourage your child to have a place, as I mentioned, with that focus finder, again, environment can make a big difference. There's three things you need to be working successfully or to finish a task. You need a cue. Okay, when I sit in my white fluffy chair, I have a routine, and my routine is that I'm going to list out my assignments, or my routine is I open my math book and I start the first question. And then what is that reward? So there's tons of research that tells us in order to get through something hard, these are the three things that the brain needs. And if talking to kids about, the cue, the routine, and the reward, that can have a big impact. And so making sure that they have a space where they have the cue, you can ask, what would be your cue? Do you have a way of going about this? How do you think about this? And what's a good reward? Have you found a reward that you like? For some kids, honestly, it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to make myself a smoothie. For some kids, it's like they're so tense about things. Just checking that off of their to-do list can be, something really positive. And so it's really those things that can help kids get stuff done.
Okay, I love it. Cue, routine, and reward. Let's see. So this is a common question. Have you found there to be any best strategy for that, as you said, like that visual representation of your calendar of to-dos? Some folks are asking, is there a certain planner you would recommend? Should we get a giant wall calendar? Anything that you have seen work particularly well for kids with ADHD to help them see more globally, that list of to-dos, including homework as well as sports practices and other things they need to take care of?
It depends on, your abilities too as a parent. For some parents, they're pretty organized and they can have a weekly calendar. And what I found to be helpful, like if you want to put a family calendar on your refrigerator, a day is too short, a month is too long, but a week is about right. And so if you have a weekly calendar, like, Sarah and Jimmy are going here, Johnny's going here, there's sports and all their activities after school, anything else that they're doing, that helps give kids a framework. When they know what to expect and they know what they're doing that day and the next day, that's super helpful. So certainly if you can do that, great. For other kids, sometimes they'll use an app on their phone to keep track, like My Homework. Other times they're using Google Calendar. And that's where most kids these days go. They have a calendar where they're putting their activities, their assignments. And if your child doesn't do that, you can plan, I call this a Sunday session. On Sunday night, you put aside like 20 minutes and you just have a discussion with your kids and say, let's look at the week ahead. Let's see what's going on. Do you have any big assignments, tasks? What do you have coming up? And those things can go onto their calendar, but it's also a time to discuss the week ahead. I personally like this strategy. I found for kids, If they can get in the routine of Sunday night planning for the week, and before they go to bed, looking at their calendar for the next day, those little things make a big difference with managing time because they know what to expect.
Okay, thank you. And a common theme today also that dovetails with our survey is sort of after school overwhelm. So someone wrote in to say their 15-year-old, has 2.5 hours of band practice every day after school. They get home, they need a mental break. So they have some dinner and maybe, spend a little time scrolling. And then it's really hard for them to transition back into the mindset of work. So you want your kid to have that reset opportunity, but we know transitions are so difficult. Is there any strategy that you have found to yield the best outcome? Is it a matter of determining that cue and that environment?
You could ask your child, what would make getting started feel easier? What do you think? And getting their input, because oftentimes they can say, I'm better when I'm not playing Xbox right before I start my homework because it's hard for me to get off of that. We've taught kids to do this internal countdown for themselves. And it's kind of like this transition countdown instead of like, oh, in 5 minutes, I'm going to start my homework, which sounds good, but it's kind of like hard to do in theory. It's hard to practically do. We have kids say to themselves, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And that, for some reason, fires them up and gets them going on to the next thing. But it's kind of like a cue. I do this, then I open my laptop and I work for 15 minutes, and then I have my reward. So even that type of thing, a countdown can be a cue to get going.
Okay, excellent. Someone is asking if you would recommend watching this webinar with their 13-year-old.
I think so. I mean, you can say, I heard these strategies. I don't know. I'd love to know what you think about them. Could some work for you? I've had kids on, we do webinars all the time for the public, and I've had lots of kids over the years, and parents will say, my son found 2 ideas, and that's huge. Like if they're willing to open the door to 2 new ideas, it's helpful. But honestly, it just like starts the dialogue. And that's a great thing, just having an open discussion with your child about these issues and get a sense of how they're feeling. Because a lot of times what I've found is that kids on the outside act like they've got it all together. They don't care. It's okay. But on the inside, they're really nervous about things. And often this is the trigger to start opening those conversations and talking about how things are really going.
Excellent. I will include one more question, and that is regarding kind of sustaining effort. And the experience that many of us have had with kids, for whatever reason, they run across challenges, they just get tired, and encouraging that kind of persistence toward a goal. We've heard some people say that having like body doubles is helpful in that challenge specifically. Do you have any other ideas for sustaining effort?
I love the idea of body doubles. In fact, I have a friend who has a business just around body doubles, and it's for adults. It's for adults that need to get work done, and so they meet at certain times and they come with their tasks, and it's a quiet place. It's supportive for them to get their work done. But there's a program called Focus Mate, and anybody can use it. And it's really great because you're paired with somebody else who also needs to get something done. And it's just like accountability for you and for the other person. I have experienced this in my own life. I used to do a lot of testing of kids for, what is their reading level, their math level. And I loved working with the kids, but writing the reports was really hard for me. So I would say to my colleague, Erin, can you come and sit in my office for the next 45 minutes? And all you have to do is sit there, and I'm going to work on my reports. And I just need to, for you to be there, and for that just kind of gives me this accountability to get it done. And that's basically what body doubling is. it's it's an old idea, but it's really vogue now. And it's one that I think kids should try out if they haven't.
Wonderful. Well, Anne, thank you so much for leading today's webinar. I am going to take with me many concepts, among them the Pomodoro method, the idea of the cue, routine, and reward, the weekly as opposed to just the daily or monthly calendar. And I love the body double method. I'm going to think some more about that. So thank you for lending all of these tips and strategies to our audience today.
Thank you, Annie.
And thanks to everyone who joined us. If you would like to access today's event resources, you can visit attitudemag.com and just search for podcast 578. The slides and recording will be posted a few hours after our live event. And if you're listening in replay mode, you can just click on the episode description. Our full library of Attitude webinars is available as a podcast. It's called the ADHD Experts Podcast, and it's available on most streaming platforms. We hope to see you all next Wednesday. Our free webinar will be titled The ADHD Guide to Managing Stress and Emotions at Work. And then on the following Wednesday, October 1st, we will kick off ADHD Awareness Month with a webinar led by Dr. William Dodson called Debunking Myths and Misperceptions of ADHD. So we hope you can make it, and we hope that you will keep up to date on all of our upcoming webinars by signing up for our newsletters at attitudemag.com/newsletters. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.